mas maraming nagiging unreported. Kasi ito palang Omicron, mostly mild or asymptomatic in cases. So more people will just stay at home or hindi magpapatest.
While Omicron is more infectious, studies in the UK showed it is only causing mild illness. 40% will not have symptoms, unaware they're carrying the variant.
Sa other variants, it's 5 days. Sa Omicron, baka as early as 3 days meron na. Pero even earlier than that, pwede ka nang nakakahawak.
Infectious disease specialist Dr. Edsel Salvana warns the public must remain on guard. While Omicron may be less deadly, the rate of its spread is a concern.
Yung mga vulnerable, mas mataas pa rin yung chance nila magkaroon ng severe. Ang problema natin is dahil ang bilis-bilis makahawa ng Omicron, pwedeng mas marami pa rin yung pwedeng mamatay pag sobrang dami talaga yung mahawa.
Health experts once again reminding the public, avoiding closed and crowded places, observing physical distancing, keeping your mask on, and getting vaccinated remain effective shields against Omicron. Caroline Bongkin, CNN Philippines.
Vaccine expert Dr. Nina Gloriani says almost all vaccines available in the country have lower efficacy against the Omicron variant. This is why she says it's important to take the primary doses and booster shots. Gloriani adds partial vaccination provides up to 52% protection against hospitalization. Full doses can give up to 72% protection against severe infection, while booster shots can increase protection up to 90% against the Omicron variant.
Importante po na makapagpabakuna ang lahat. Yung hindi pa na kahit nakakaisa, kailangan pong makaisa na kayo. Tapos sundan nyo, siguruhin yung susunod ay maibibigay sa inyo at after 3 months, yung third dose na po, yung booster actually. So yun po, importante na magpabakuna ang lahat.
In the wake of the fight against the coronavirus, the Food and Drug Administration chief announces his resignation effective today. Eric Domingo says he has done his part to help during the pandemic, and there are now better systems in place at the FDA. The FDA primarily responsible for the approval of vaccines against the coronavirus. The Tourism Department is looking into reports that more hotels are violating quarantine policies. This comes amid the controversy involving a traveler from the United States who skipped quarantine to attend a party. David Santos has more.
The Tourism Department getting word from tipsters about more foreign travelers skipping quarantine. Secretary Berna Romulo Puyat revealing on Monday about another lady traveler who recently flew in from the US. Accordingly, she went straight to her condo instead of checking into a quarantine hotel. Puya telling the source the lady even had the audacity to brag about skirting the rules.
After this incident, somebody gave the name, even gave pictures na the day she arrived, nagpamasahe pa, as in she was even posting it on Instagram stories. Very proud na she was skipping quarantine. And then her name was given and the person who knows her even gave a sworn affidavit. Nahuli na rin yung taong yun.
The tourism chief did not identify this latest quarantine violator, but her case has been endorsed to authorities. DOT is looking into similar cases involving 2 to 3 other hotels. It is also awaiting the explanation of Berjaya Makati Hotel, where the now infamous Poblacion girl was supposed to be staying. She went partying in a Makati bar when she's supposed to be on quarantine, only to find out later she tested positive for COVID-19. Officials say 7 of her identified close contacts have also caught the virus. The MMDA now wants security forces deployed to quarantine hotels.
We're planning to get the cooperation of the PNP here. Philippine National, lalo na sa Bureau of Quarantine, yung mga nakakatakas, yun ang nakakainis sa lahat. Nag-iingat ka sa lahat, biglang may tatakas mga hawa ng iba. Siguro, what could be done here is request also the presence of the police in these areas. Dahil hirap na hirap tayong ganitong nangyayari, tapos merong mga taong nag-i-skip ng quarantine at posibleng magkalat na sakit.
The Coast Guard earlier tasked to secure quarantine facilities including hotels, ICE reassigning personnel. Authorities are still studying legal actions against those involved in the case of Poblacion girl. Among them, violations of the law on mandatory reporting of notifiable diseases, while Makati has an ordinance on mandatory quarantine. Both have fines and imprisonment as penalties. The police say it is finalizing its criminal complaint. The Makati LGU also saying it is not taking the case lightly, calling it a serious breach of the public health and safety rules. David Santos, CNN Philippines.
Online learning is back in the next 2 weeks as a safety precaution amid the COVID-19 surge, and with Metro Manila under alert level 3, this also puts on hold plans to expand the test run of in-person classes. Teachers appeal for better planning in carrying out distance learning.
Paano yun? Every time na may panibagong variant, ipapasarado ang school natin. Ano yung game plan nila para sa mga estudyante sa education? Diba, sa mga teacher?
Transportation authorities are stepping up monitoring of compliance to health protocols amid the higher alert level. Enforcers apprehended 5 public utility vehicles for violating the 70% passenger capacity limit during operation at the Welcome Rotonda in Quezon City. A van was also caught covering its UV Express sticker to pass along a prohibited route. The jeepney driver said they were unaware of the passenger cap, but officials point out this has been in effect since Metro Manila was placed under alert level 2 late last year.
Biyahe ko kapon, di ko alam balita. Gabi na ako nung gumarahe. Kaya nagulat na nga lang ako na bakit may ganito na naman. Hindi ko lang, kung alam ko lang, ba't akong pupuno, ma'am?
Pag sinasabi po nila hindi nila alam, that is not an excuse. Kasi matagal na po yung 70%. Dapat po aware sila doon. Ngayon nga lang po, mas lalo po lang binabantayan ng mga enforcers.
More hospitals in the National Capital Region see a spike in COVID-19 patients at the Dr. Jose N. Rodriguez Memorial Hospital in Caloocan City. Confirmed and probable cases are now at 163 from 25 before the holidays. Around 70 are moderate, 5 are critical, more than 20 healthcare workers. But the hospital director says the situation is still manageable as there are over 500 beds designated for COVID patients. The facility also restocked on oxygen tanks and medicine. The Philippine General Hospital in Manila also see more people coming in for COVID-like symptoms. Its spokesman says the PGH now has 150 patients from a low of 30 before Christmas.
Nagkaroon ng maraming festivities, gatherings, so na-violate yung minimum health protocol. So expected na tataas yung cases post-New Year.
You know, a lot of our healthcare workers who tested positive are fully immunized. Some even had their booster, and so they usually are asymptomatic and mild. About 60% of the admitted patients in PGH right now are fully vaccinated, and they have the mild to moderate condition.
Both hospitals say none of the admitted patients so far are confirmed to have the Omicron variant. Meanwhile, the health department logged a 9% rise in hospital admissions and emergency room patients nationwide. The agency asks those experiencing mild symptoms to maximize telemedicine and government hotlines to avoid crowding hospitals. Coming up on Newsnight, the unvaccinated in Metro Manila will have less freedom to go out under alert level 3 in a bid to prevent them from catching COVID-19. And 2 mayors in the region add to the surging case tally as they test positive for the virus. More when we return.
Pokemon Legends Arceus is an action RPG where, you guessed it, players have to catch them all when it releases January 28th for the Nintendo Switch.
Just started the beginning. We landed on Mars. It looked wrong.
Eyes up, Guardian. Destiny 2 The Witch Queen is the new expansion to the MMO shooter for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation consoles. The Witch Queen invades February 22nd.
What could the demigods ever hope to win by warring?
A Song of Ice and Fire author George R.R. Martin may not have finished The Winds of Winter yet, but he did write the lore of Elden Ring, which releases for Windows, Xbox, and PlayStation systems on February 25th. The hyper-realistic racing action of Gran Turismo 7 races onto the PlayStation 4 and 5 when the green flag drops March 4th.
Ready, set, Chocobo!
Racing of a different kind happens in Chocobo GP, with players driving characters from the Final Fantasy games. The Birds Fly the Coop March 10th for the Nintendo Switch.
Hold on, what game are we playing here?
We're playing Bunkers and Badasses, baby!
Tiny Tina's Wonderlands is what you get when you mix a first-person shooter with a tabletop RPG theme with an adolescent bomb builder as dungeon master. While that seems like a lot to unpack, anyone who's played the Borderlands games, which this is a spin-off of, will likely nod with knowing approval. The mayhem commences March 25th on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. Leveling up in Hollywood, I'm Rick Damagella.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. Motorists starting 2022 with more expensive fuel. Several oil companies announced they will be raising diesel prices by 2 pesos and 40 centavos per liter and gasoline by 1 peso and 85 centavos per liter effective 6 a.m. tomorrow. CA Oil also announced a 1 peso and 85 centavo per liter hike for kerosene. Uni Oil earlier said they will also increase diesel prices by 2 pesos and 40 centavos per liter and gasoline prices by up to 1 peso and 90 centavos per liter. The Metro Manila Council approves in principle a resolution requiring the unvaccinated and those partially inoculated to stay at home except for essential activities. Trisha Terada tells us the national government supports the move.
The stay-at-home order for unvaccinated and partially vaccinated people will be temporary. MMDA Chairman Benhur Abalo says the restriction is in place when the region is under alert level 3 or higher. Based on the approved resolution, unvaccinated and partially vaccinated people will only be allowed outside their homes when buying essential goods, going to work, or exercising within the vicinity of their homes. They can't go to restaurants, malls, hotels, and other leisure areas. While the effectivity date has yet to be set, the national government lauds the bold move.
Kaya nga natin ginagawa dahil ayaw na nating mag-lockdown. Ayaw natin. We should learn to live with the virus.
Alam naman po natin na yung mga unvaccinated individuals pose a threat to the community. Therefore, maganda po yung naging desisyon nila.
Authorities say the restrictions are for the safety of those without protection against COVID-19. Presidential Advisor for COVID-19 Response Vince Dizon says the unvaccinated comprise 85 to 90% of COVID-19 hospitalizations abroad.
Ang apat na na-surge ito simula noong 2020, napababa natin ang mga kaso, lalo na yung Delta, na napababa natin ang mabilis. Kung tayong lahat ay magtutulungan at simple lang po, lahat tayo ay dapat magpabakuna.
Dizon adds the entry of the Omicron variant is inevitable. He says the government has been preparing for this since last year. He says the health department has sent test kits among various laboratories. The government will also rehire contact tracers and get more workers on board to prepare the healthcare system. Interior Secretary Eduardo Año has instructed the police to help local governments in enforcing Alert Level 3 guidelines and pocket lockdowns. They will also conduct random inspection of establishment and quarantine facilities. In the meantime, the Trade Department says Metro Manila's shift to Alert Level 3 would cause around 100 to 200,000 jobs on hold or about 200 million pesos in economic losses. Trade Secretary Mon Lopez says the government will keep an eye on the healthcare and ICU utilization rates in the coming days.
Kung hindi gumagalaw itong ICU at walang lumalala naman, it will give us the confidence to again go back to alert level 2 kung kinakailangan at para mabalik natin yung alert level 2 at yung dami ng SME businesses na pwede uli magbukas at dami ng trabaho na pwede uli.
Trisha Terada, CNN Philippines.
2 Metro Manila mayors test positive for COVID-19 as cases in the region spike anew. Pasig City Mayor Emmy Calixto Rubiano is now undergoing facility-based isolation. She started exhibiting symptoms like sore throat last Saturday. This is the second time she contracted the virus. The first time was last February. Her chief of staff says the mayor will hold online meetings from her isolation facility and will continue to fulfill her duties as local chief executive. Last Sunday, Navotas City Mayor Toby Tiangco confirmed he tested positive for COVID-19 Tiangco advised all those who had come in contact with him to observe their health condition. He also said he would continue to perform his duties as mayor. Quiapo Church in Manila closes its doors amid rising cases of COVID-19. The Minor Basilica of the Black Nazarene will be shut down starting today until Thursday, January 6. The parochial vicar says the church will carry out disinfection ahead of the Feast of the Black Nazarene on Sunday. Novena Masses will be held virtually until the church opens again this Friday. The Commission on Elections is set to live stream the preliminary conference for one of the disqualification cases against presidential aspirant, former Senator Bongbong Marcos, a first in the poll body's history. That announcement coming from Commissioner Rowena Guanzon. The proceedings involving the Marcos camp and Akbayan on Friday will air live on Facebook. 6 members of the media will be allowed to attend the hearing at the session hall. Guanzon warns anyone disturbing the proceedings will be cited in contempt and will be sent to jail for 48 hours. The hearing will look into Akbayan's petition to ban Marcos from holding public office because of his 1995 tax conviction. There are a total of 6 pending cases against him. Meanwhile, his lawyers say Marcos had ordered the closure of the BBM Sara campaign headquarters today until further notice after more than 20 of his staff tested positive for COVID-19. Marcos will also stop all activities and sorties until January 15. Presidential aspirant Senator Manny Pacquiao also suspending political gatherings because of rising COVID cases. Now, the Cusi-led faction of the ruling party, PDP Laban, defends its petition asking the COMELEC to reopen the filing of the certificates of candidacy amid accusations the move is an attempt to derail the 2022 elections. The Cusi wing says it is only exercising its rights under the election law. The faction wants the COMELEC to extend the filing of COCs, which already took place last October 1 to 8. The group also argues the poll body should not proceed with the printing of ballots yet, while petitions against certain aspirants are still pending. Lutgardo Barbo, vice chairman of the rival PDP Laban faction, had accused the Cusi wing of pushing for a no-election scenario this year. Meanwhile, Senator Ping Lacson says while he is not accusing the Cusi-led faction of trying to delay the polls, any move to extend the president's 6-year term is forbidden under the Constitution. PDP Laban has no standard bearer for the 2022 polls after Senators Bato de la Rosa and Bongo withdrew from the presidential race. A probe is underway after a Sunday night riot at the New Bilibid prison in Muntinlupa. As of this morning, the Bureau of Corrections reports 3 prisoners were killed and 14 others injured from gunshots after a heated argument between 2 adjacent dorms. Bureau spokesperson Gabriel Chaklag told CNN Philippines the riot was not gang-related. Photos from the Bureau showed 6 improvised guns, a loaded .22 caliber revolver, and bladed weapons from the scene. Authorities have isolated 7 people believed to have played a role in the violence. Justice Secretary Manado Guevara admits the need for even tighter security inside the country's biggest penitentiary, located in Muntinlupa. He also wants regionalized prison facilities to decongest jails, hoping the improved environment would promote rehabilitation of prisoners. Up next on Newsnight, no action at the court for now after the Philippine Basketball Association suspends games for the week. And Chris Aquino's deleted photographs online gets netizens speculating, is Mel Sarmiento out of the picture? Details after the break. This week are put on pause because of the upgrade to Alert Level 3 in Metro Manila. The The Games and Amusement Board will announce when tournaments can kick off again. Meanwhile, Philippine Athletics Track and Field Association President Philip Ella Wico plans to contest the Philippine Olympic Committee's decision declaring him persona non grata. The committee said Wico made malicious accusations against co-vaulter E.J. Obiena, which allegedly involved the athlete falsifying reports about his coach's salary.
The basic thing is walang due process. Basic thing is it's not in their jurisdiction. So that's what it is, and we're going against it. That's all, and we are giving a report to our International Federation, World Athletics, of what's going on.
Wico also stressed the matter involving Obiena should be resolved internally first before the POC gets involved. And making waves online, all photographs and videos of Chris Aquino's fiancée, Mel Sarmiento, can no longer be found on the star's Instagram account. The deleted pictures got some netizens concerned, even if neither Chris nor Mel has yet to announce a split, while others are asking to give Chris and the former Interior Secretary privacy at this time. The pair first announced their engagement in October on an Instagram post last December 25. The actress talked about being grateful for Mel and hit back against those offering negative opinions about their relationship. We're open to getting Chris's side of the story. And also, taking over social media, Harry Potter fans welcoming the new year with nostalgia. Hashtags Harry Potter 20th anniversary and Return to Hogwarts went trending on Twitter after the cast's long-awaited reunion came out January 1st. Fans got emotional over Emma Watson and Rupert Grint's stories of how the world-famous franchise changed their lives. Emma and Tom Felton reuniting also caught the hearts of many after the actress admitted she used to have a crush on Tom. And before we go, beloved American actress and comedian Betty White is gone, but certainly not forgotten, and her fans will have a special opportunity to remember her this month. CNN's David Daniel has that and more in the Hollywood Minute.
Hello, I'm Betty White.
The show will go on. Betty White died on New Year's Eve, but producers are going ahead with Betty White, A Celebration. The documentary on the remarkable performer's life and career will still play in theaters one night only, Monday, January 17th, White's 100th birthday. Check fathomevents.com for locations.
We have unfinished business.
Black Widow was a box office hit, but its director, Kate Shortland, was part of a shrinking minority. The Center for the Study of Women in Television and Film at San Diego State University says Shortland and Eternals director Chloe Zhao were two of just 12 female directors among the year's top 100 films at the domestic box office. That's down from 16 in 2020. The report shows women continue to be underrepresented in key film industry jobs.
Hello, dearies.
Mrs. Doubtfire is hoping to wait out the Omicron variant. The Broadway show has announced a 9-week hiatus through March 14th in hopes the latest surge in COVID-19 cases will have ebbed by then. Producers said in a statement, "We are doing everything in our power to keep the virus from prematurely ending our run on Broadway." In Hollywood, I'm David Daniel.
And that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
This program is brought to you by
Radio Philippines Network Incorporated, DXPO. Process as inday uso sa dial sa inyong radyo. RPM DXKO, ang radyo ronda dili sa Dakbayan sa Cagayan de Oro. Sidiyahan na may ganaon sa katawan, ang daw na serbisyo sa tanan. Ang RPN DXKO Radyo Ronda sakop sa KBP, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
Couldn't have been more chaotic and conflict-ridden from the politics of a pandemic, tamed even if for a moment by a vaccine rollout, to the politics of a maritime row long put to rest by international bodies, punctuated by another country's Coast Guard vessel not quite trampling on our sacred shores, but just opening water cannon fire on our boats on a resupply mission to a grounded Philippine vessel serving as an outpost in a shoal, to the politics of the presidency, the death of one who once occupied it, and the actuations and pronouncements of his successor leading up to the latter's last 6 months in office, and the handing over of power to the one who will succeed him after the all-time favorite Pinoy pastime, the go-to political exhaust valve, an election. Good evening, I'm Pia Ontiveros. Welcome to your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual.
2022 must be the end of the COVID-19 pandemic. But it must also be the beginning of something else, a new era of solidarity.
Well, let's talk about the pandemic with our first guest tonight, National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine Czar Carlito Galvez Jr. Good evening, Secretary Galvez. Well, you know, wow, what can we say? 2021 has been quite the year, sir, for the pandemic, for the vaccine rollout. How would you describe this these last 12 months?
Yes, actually, Pia, it's very challenging. In fact, talagang yung pag-surge natin during the Delta is very, very talagang napakahirap. But also in our vaccine rollout, nakita natin na talagang last March talagang naghihirap tayo. There are a lot of challenges. First challenge yung ating supply. There is no steady supply. And then also nadoon din ang hesitancy and also yung administration. But now, after looking at it, we were able to accomplish many things. First, we were able to reach 100 million jobs. As of this moment, we have already administered 106 million jobs. And this morning, I received the latest delivery of AstraZeneca. So all in all, we have already 205 million. So nakita natin, Pia, na unang-una napakahirap nung una natin talaga nung last February na we only get the donations from China, but now we are having a lot of donations, not only from COVAX, but also from bilateral. And we would like to thank the WHO, the COVAX facility and the Gavi, because they were able to fulfill their promise. Their promise is to have 44 million, but they have already supplied us 62 million. And also the bilateral partners that we have, our allies have given us more than 11 million. And the private sector this morning has completed the delivery of 17 million AstraZeneca. And also the Moderna that had been taken by the ICTSI will also be finished this month.
Sec Charlie, siguro in a way, parang understatement yung challenging. I'm sure you can think of so many other words to describe what 2021 was like in terms of the pandemic, yes, and how we dealt with it, and that vaccine rollout. And also, Sec Charlie, I really remember yung Feb and March, yung, alam po yung parang fear, yung trepidation, takot ng tao. Takot ako at that time. Tapos yung nga, as you said, no, yung paunti-unti yung dating ng bakuna, tapos yes, problema sa supply, ang daming gustong magpabakuna. And then we yes, moved to that portion of the year na medyo may supply na tayo, pero may problema pa rin tayo sa hesitancy. Hanggang ngayon pa po ba? So wala na tayong problema sa supply, pero pa po tayong problema sa hesitancy din naman.
Nakita namin na, Pia, it's more on accessibility. Ngayon maganda yung ginagawa ng ating mga LGUs. When we go around sa different areas, especially sa Jensen, mga different cities, nakita natin na na-overcome din natin yung hesitancy and maganda yung mga strategy ng ating mga LGU. Ang ginagawa nila ngayon is talagang they go mobile, house to house, barangay to barangay. Nung napunta nga kami sa Jensan, lahat doon, yung religious sector, yung private sector, kinukotahan nila every day. So nakukuha nila yung target nila and kung titingnan natin na ang model natin yung NCR na 106% na ang fully vaccinated, meaning na na-breach nila yung hesitancy ng mga tao. Pero sa ngayon, yun na talagang isang challenge. We still have 2.5 million na senior citizens that have not been vaccinated. Kung titingnan natin sa ating record, yung in-administer natin ng 106 million, ang total ng Pilipino na inoculate natin, either first dose or second dose, is 60 million. Meaning meron pa tayong 40 million na hindi pa nababakunahan.
And they are not yet vaccinated because hindi sila mahanap or kailangan silang puntahan sa mga bahay nila. Because LGUs, for example, I think Taguig even, ang gagawin nila yung mga bedridden and
Yes.
bedridden whether senior or not, pupuntahan nila talaga sa mga bahay nila.
Yes, ganun ang ginagawa natin. Actually, nakita natin sa Metro Manila, nung una nga talaga, parang after ng 40%, bumangga tayo sa 40%, ang akala natin hesitancy. Pero ang ginawa ng ating mga LGUs, hindi na sila nag-entertain na sila ng walk-ins. Nakita natin ang Manila, yung Quezon City. So they are already entertain walk-ins. And then yung ginawa nga natin, yung National Vaccination Day, na within 5 days, we broke a lot of records na talagang 10 million in 5 days nakuha natin. At yun ang maganda dahil kasi parang sinasabi nga ng mga LGU na yung mga kababayan natin gusto nila yung iba kasi parang hindi sila techie, hindi sila registered. So ginagawa nila is nag-walk-in na lang sila. And we were able to catch them, and also ang kagandahan din, naghahakot na rin yung ating mga LGU. And maganda na rin yung mga dissemination ng DOH, yung mga town hall meetings. Maganda na rin ang mga result noon. At saka ang nakita natin yung Jollibee, McDonald's, yung mga private sector, yung T3, tumutulong na rin na talagang mapadami yung demand at ma-increase yung ating tatawag nating acceptance. And then also magandang ginawa rin nating strategy, we open up our demand by opening yung children vaccination, yung tinatawag natin for minors, MABEPEC. Sumama na rin yung ibang mga seniors. So sa ngayon nakita natin na yung very successful tayo sa pediatric vaccination dahil kasi more than 8 million na ang nakaka-first dose and 5 million na ang second dose natin.
In a way, Sec Charlie, parang whole of nation, I know it sounds so, I don't know, whole of nation effort talaga to, everybody coming together to help. And I guess that's also why you call it why you called it the Bayanihan Bakunahan. But also very quickly, I want to go back to the Delta surge. Like as you mentioned at the very beginning, talagang yung takot ng mga tao nung Feb at March, bumalik siya nung August, September dahil sa Delta surge, no? And there's a lot of, kanina po, you used the word you're so thankful, you're so grateful. And tama po ba, Sec Charlie? Parang a lot of people were just grateful na kahit papaano nalampasan natin yung Delta surge na yun, sir?
Yes, actually napakahirap ng Delta. Kung makikita mo ng Delta, unang-una napakahaba ng kanyang tinatawag nating deadly surge. Pangalawa, dati nung ginagawa natin yung ibang mga surge, packet lang. Itong Delta talagang widespread. Ang ganda ng nakita natin, napakahirap ng naranasan natin. Pero napakaganda ng ating preparation kasi before I started, ang ginawa natin na delay natin. Maganda yung ating tinatawag nating border control na ginagawa ng one-stop shop ng DOTR, ng DOT at saka ng BOQ ng ating Bureau of Quarantine. At na-delay yun at prepare tayo ng mga oxygen, na-prepare natin ng temporary quarantine facility, mga hotels natin, at nakabili din tayo ng mga tinatawag natin ng mga treatment medicines. So ang kagandahan nun yung talagang yung hindi tayo natulad ng sa India at saka sa Indonesia na nawalan tayo ng mga cemeteries at nawalan tayo ng oxygen. At least nakapag-prepare tayo nung sa natin sa Delta. And we are using this experience para mag-prepare tayo sa Omicron. For over 1 month now or more than 1 month, nakita natin below 500 ang ating cases. At ang ating positivity ay hindi umaangat ng 3%. Bumaba pa ito ng 0.9%. at ang ating tinatawag nating ating reproduction rate is talaga napakababa, beyond below
Way below the 5%.
WHO threshold.
Yeah.
So napakaganda ng ating mga numbers.
Naihabol, sir, ng bakuna yung Delta surge. So, and like you were saying, we are going to be better prepared this time for the Omicron variant, and well, everybody, fingers crossed for everyone because of what lies ahead. But Sec Charlie, I know earlier you said about being grateful, and I wanted to ask you also about what can be expected. Siguro mahirap yung for the entire 2022, but let's just say for the first quarter of 2022.
Sa 2020, ang gagawin natin talagang imamassive din natin ang vaccination. Ang ating threshold is makuha natin yung 54 million this year. And then ang first quarter kailangan makuha natin 77 million. At gusto natin din na more or less yung mga 19 million na natin nakadedicate for booster, mag-booster din natin kasi yun ang sinasabi ng mga ibang bansa na tulad ng Israel na pagka at least meron tayo additional layer of protection, third dose, mas malaki ang protection natin. And pangatlo is ibubuin na natin yung tinatawag natin yung children vaccination, yung 5 to 11, i-open up na natin yan dahil kasi darating na yung mga vaccines na in-order natin ng 15 million from Pfizer. And then also, exit strategy, we'll try to minimize yung casualty. At the same time, we will save our economy. And ang ating target din sa first quarter is talagang progressively open ang ating tinatawag na face-to-face schooling at saka face-to-face na opening ng higher education at saka yung basic education.
That's all very good to hear, Sec Charlie. Like you said, and like the doctors always say, vaccination, ventilation, and vigilance, and everything else besides, so that we can, like you say, reopen the economy and, yes, send the kids back to school, hopefully. Thank you so much, National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer and Vaccine SAR, Carlito Charlie Galvez Jr. Sec Charlie, Happy New Year to you. Maraming salamat po. We'll be back after a quick break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is Politics as Usual.
We are not moving LT57 or the BRP Sierra Madre. It has been there since 1999. It is a permanent government post manned by our personnel from the AFP. And it is there as a haven for our fishermen who would go to the shoal and for safety at sea.
However, they are vessels that are built quite big. So they are as
unusually big for a Coast Guard vessel.
Yes.
Hindi sila mukhang Coast Guard vessel.
They are actually Coast Guard because they're painted white with the stripes on it, no? But they're very big vessels and they were former Navy vessels painted white.
From the threats of the pandemic, let's now move on to the maritime issue of the West Philippine Sea. Here with us is maritime law expert Professor J. Batong Bakal. Professor J, kanina sabi nga kay Sec Charlie in terms of the pandemic, what a year 2021 was. Same goes for the West Philippine Sea with everything that has happened, right, Professor?
Yes, that's true. No, there's a stark difference between the government's statements and posture now and as compared to the previous years. So yes, there has been quite a marked change in the past year, especially.
Well, Professor J, let's begin with this. One of the things that stuck out for me was when we had the Coast Guard, nag-uumpisa na silang mag-challenge sa mga Chinese ships. That was in the early part, the first and the second quarter of 2021. And it's sort of like, para bang naging morale booster ba, in a way. Would you agree? What did you think of, those scenes? It seemed, in a way, surreal.
Well, that's true, no? But in the first place, the reaction I had when I heard of it was something along the lines of finally.
Yes,
no? Yes. Because they had not been doing it from 2016, no? But it changed with the Julian Felipe reef situation early this year. So finally, we now have the government through the Coast Guard and Navy and even the BFAR, really openly demonstrating that the Philippines is the West Philippine Sea in accordance with international law. So it's been quite delayed in a way, but at least it came at the last year. Of course, the reason for that we may only speculate, but I guess the important thing is that now that they've resumed it, they really should not swing back later on. I hope that this is not just a temporary thing for show. But this really has to be the permanent policy and posture of the Philippines.
Hindi lang dapat bravado. But at the same time, Professor J, I remember, para bang ang paliwanag kasi ng Coast Guard at ng Task Force West Philippine Sea ay dahil dumating na kasi yung mga malalaking barko ng Coast Guard na kapag tinapat nila doon sa mga Chinese Coast Guard and those vessels, para bang, medyo magkapareho na sila in a way, kahit papaano.
Well, maybe that's true with respect to the Coast Guard crews. They have a little bit more confidence that with larger vessels, they will be able to establish and maintain their presence there and will not be as easily cowed into a retreat as they would be if they had smaller vessels. But the thing is, you also have to relate this to the government's overall policy and official posture in the previous years. So it doesn't seem like it was a case of just waiting for larger vessels, but you also had 5 years really of essentially silence, and in a way avoidance, avoidance of any kind of interaction as a matter of policy. Kasi naman, even before, they did have at least a few larger vessels, but they were not used, and they continued to just rely on the smaller vessels that were actually fishery law enforcement vessels.
So the choices that were made, the posturing and the policy of the government, but what is it, in one sentence, what could have changed? What led to that change at the last minute, if you will, or the last year or the last year and a half? Was it because patapos na ang Duterte administration? What was it?
Well, for me, I still think that the coming elections has something to do with it. And the fact that with the coming elections, the government still did not have any good thing to show for its policies towards China when it came to the West Philippine Sea. For 5 years, they emphasized that silence and being quiet and keeping our head down would be reciprocated by China. But instead, what happened, they got even more adventurous, shall we say, and as we've seen in the last month with the water cannon incident, actually parang namihasa nga sila, and they're even more confident now of interfering with Philippine vessels and their operations in the West Philippine Sea.
That incident, was like the highlight of the year, I suppose. Seeing those Chinese Coast Guard vessels, opening water cannon fire on the Navy resupply boats. When that happened, what did you think that did to the government? Because, like as you said, para bang in the last minute, in the last year na lang medyo nagbago yung actuations ng pamalaan when it comes to the West Philippine Sea. So, is this latest incident going to push the government even further? Are we going to be more confident when confronting or facing these Chinese vessels?
Well, I think that even though it's a little bit late in the game, it's really finally disabused the government of any notion that China will give it any quarter, any room to maneuver when it comes to these issues. China has continued to push on the Philippines, to pressure the Philippines to try to get us to abandon our positions there, and they basically have identified Ayungin Shoal as probably one of the most vulnerable ones, the one that they can really put pressure on for us to abandon. No? And this really proves that they will not change their strategy or their policy. They will still do everything that they can to get us out of these positions, to push us out of the West Philippine Sea, regardless of our friendliness to them.
Well, every country has its own interests, and so should we. A while ago, we used that soundbite of General Andy Centino, Chief of Staff AFP, saying that no, we are not moving the BRP Sierra Madre out of the Ayungin Shoal.
Yes, that is correct. We should not move at all. Ayungin Shoal, after all, is one of the places which were clearly determined by the tribunal not to form part of the Philippine EEZ and continental shelf. It is clearly within our jurisdiction, no? And so we have every right to be the ones to manage what happens there. We have every right to put an outpost there if we wanted, no? And we have every right as well to take what actions we need to protect our resources in that area. No? So hopefully again, this will really be a clear, unequivocal, and unchanging policy of the Philippine government, regardless of who happens to sit in office next year.
And it's a good thing the BRP Sierra Madre is still a commissioned vessel of the Philippine Navy. Thank you so much, Professor J. Batong Bakal, maritime law expert. Salamat po, sir. We'll have a short break. We'll talk about the upcoming 2022 presidential elections and the presidency when we return. This is Politics as Usual. We are on our final stretch.
The overwhelming, sentiment of the Filipino is that I am not qualified and it would be a violation of the Constitution to circumvent the law, the spirit of the Constitution. Sundin ko ang gusto ninyo. And today, I announce my retirement from politics.
The 2022 elections taking stage with only 5 months left before Filipinos cast their votes. Here to talk about the leader we need and the leader we're looking for is columnist John Nery. Hi, John. Thank you very much for being with us today. Well, let's begin with, I wanted to talk about the presidency, the one who occupied before this incumbent, President Aquino. We have to mark that because he died on June 24, middle of this year. Let's talk a little first about him before we talk about President Duterte. John.
Sure. I think that his death, which was unexpected, actually gave permission to a lot of people to embrace his legacy again. It felt like it was a safe thing to do again. This is not to say that criticism has let up, but I only want to point out that more people have felt emboldened or encouraged to say good things about what happened in the last term because of his unexpected death.
Yun nga lang, parang bang naging okay na maging dilawan ulit, yun lang naging kakampink na ngayon. But anyway, we'll talk about that in just a bit. I wanted to talk very briefly also about the sixth and final SONA, State of the Nation address of President Duterte. So, of course, every SONA naman of every president always leaves its mark. But this one in particular, because it's very long, and then because also at the very end, it was parang nagkaroon ng isang malaking event after it when you had Heidelin Diaz winning the country's first Olympic gold, no? But how would you see that SONA in relation to the months that followed that, leading up to the elections that are coming in May?
The SONA has helped crystallize my understanding of the president's approach to governance, and that is it's really more of drama. He offers a sense of drama, and we see this again. For instance, last week when he said that in commiserating with the victims of Odette, he said, we don't have money. Our funds have been depleted. I don't think the president really believes that there is no money. And in fact, there is billions of pesos available for this from the Calamity Fund, from the President's Social Fund, and so on and so forth. But I think he offers that's his approach, that's his mayor's approach to all sorts of things. This is the sort of thing that he did when he was mayor of Davao City. He would visit, let's say, the victims of a community that was razed by fire, and he would say, "I don't know where I'll get money, but I'm going to give you something." And it was the job of his city administrator and his other officials to look for the funding that will be announced the next day. Talking about what he wanted to do and so on, but really it was a political performance. But after 6 such performances, I think that many people have learned to discount some of the things that he said. And of course, after the Olympics, people were talking about other things already, including Heidelin Diaz's gold medal.
Mm-hmm. Well, political performance, you yourself described SONA, and this was 10 years ago or so, as political theater, which is what the presidency is in a way, right?
Well, yes. We need to understand that our presidency is 2 positions combined. It's a head of state and head of government. So the head of state part, that's where the rituals are important. I mean, he represents all of us regardless of whether we voted for him or not. So in that sense, when the president as head of state addresses the nation, that is political theater. But there are certain things that need to be followed. There are certain protocols that need to be met and so on.
Yeah, certain things that need to get done. Yeah, certain things that need to get done. Now, the other political theater that has been going on in the last 2.5 months or so was the drama, the political theater that's leading up to the election. So you have Bongo filing and then withdrawing for, dapat nga VP muna, naging president, si PRRD mismo, nag-file ng senator, etc. Then you have BBM, Sara, and Bato filing, withdrawing this whole roller coaster ride of Philippine politics. And now we have the latest survey showing Bongbong Marcos clearly on top, way ahead of the pack. And there's this, this interesting article you wrote. No, what kind of a president are we looking for? And you talked about the continuity president, the change president, the career president. But in that list of yours, you have the continuity president, Bato, for example. But things are a little bit different now, no? And then you didn't mention Ping Lacson. No? So how are you going to, who fits into which bracket? And for you, what is the most important?
Okay, before I answer that, let me say that President Duterte ends 2021 a much diminished president than when he started 2021. And this is not just because of the so-called lame duck syndrome. I think it's because none of his preferred exit strategies panned out. No RevGov, no nationwide martial law,
revolutionary government
to succeed him. And he's been very candid about this, that he was not consulted when Sara decided to run for vice president. And he said, I cannot understand. She's leading in the surveys. So, it comes across as...
but you're sure he's being real about that, huh? It's not political theater when he says na, why isn't she running, no? And then tinitira niya si BBM. So hindi yan political theater. You're sure about that? Of course, it's much more difficult now to separate political theater from actual political reality, because Duterte is a master of the political drama. But I think and himself in a game which he can no longer control. This is not to discount the president. He's still the most powerful person
He has still the most powerful office. This chief executive still has the capability to execute mischief. But at the same time, we're seeing that he was left out of the decision making. And so everything else that we've seen, they were all scrambling to fit the changing script. Bongo, Bato del Rosa saying, they asked me at 3 p.m. if I can file a certificate of candidacy. So he did an hour later. I mean, they are scrambling. So we find ourselves in a unique political juncture. A very popular president has no specific successor candidate right now. So he's thinking, no?
But at the same time, John, kasi, di ba, presidential anointments don't always work. As a matter of fact, it only worked once with Cory anointing FVR. And after that, nothing worked after. I mean, kahit mag-anoint si incumbent, yung pinili niya, number 3, number 4, doesn't always follow, di ba?
No, that's because of the unique circumstances of the 92 elections. No, that was a very close multi-candidate election, and a swing of 500,000 votes was enough to dictate the winner. Now that we're looking at Bongo Marcos, so we've seen. I think the Pulse Asia December results show that there has been some consolidation of the Sara Duterte and Bongo Marcos basis of support. Does this mean that they will be at this stage all the way to the end? No, I think it's still very fluid. I think
kasi pre-campaign survey nga no? Pre-campaign survey pa kasi.
Yes, that's right. And then some people will say, don't believe surveys. They're mind conditioning and so on. But in fact, if they were in mind conditioning, then the results would be different in the next survey. But it doesn't work that way, precisely because, and both Pulse Asia and SWS have already written on this, there's very, very few people who change their minds based on the surveys. So it doesn't really matter.
Okay, all right. We need to say thank you and goodbye to you, John. Naubusan na naman tayo ng oras. With everything that's happened in 2021, kulang talaga yung kalahating oras or less than kalahating oras. So, thank you so much to you, John, Neri, and a Happy New Year. We'll see you again in 2022. We've been told before, don't talk politics at the dinner table or at a family reunion or in Viber groups and risk digital warfare. But we can talk about it here at this table on the show, your weekly political appointment fix, politics as usual. I'm Pia Ontiveros. See you back here next Tuesday, 8:30 p.m.